Lola. Good morning, everybody. My name is Balogun. I'm called a people officer, which means I work with people on a daily basis. I'm here because I'm hoping that since Lola has invited me to talk on this Solo to CEO workshop, I can help you in terms of what it is that your people are doing in your organization. Now, I don't have privy to the questionnaire that was sent out. So I don't really have an idea of what it is that your businesses do. So would you mind just telling me quite quickly what it is that you do? I heard somebody that does accessories, but I'd like to have an idea so I get a feel of what it is that you're doing. And then we can also move on to the kind of structure that you have. So I don't know if I can just speak on somebody. Kenneth, can you tell me what your business is quickly and what it does? Okay, this is the poll. So, but Lola, has it been filled already? Can't hear you. Sorry, yeah, the poll is live. Is it live? Sorry, I have somebody from the team here next to me. So can anybody see the poll? Alternatively, we had Amama say she's in art. Okay. What else? What does Mobolaji do? Anyway, anybody else willing to say what their business does quickly? Healthcare, energy. Okay. I don't think anybody wants to respond. Maybe it's too early. But I'm assuming that everybody has either a small or a medium business, right? So I'm going to use that as my yardstick. Hopefully I'll be correct in that sense. Mm-hmm. I'm also assuming that that means you have maybe like 10 employees and below. Okay, somebody said makeup. Okay, Tommy does makeup. Thank you, Tommy, for that. Someone is in fashion and then art. Okay, that's all that I can see for now. So it's sounding like everybody here is a creative, which is very interesting. Okay. And like I said, I'm assuming that your structure is probably about 10 and below. So I'll use that as a yardstick. Now, the first thing, obviously, talking about people is what your org structure is saying. I don't have an example of an organizational structure, but obviously your organogram should obviously have maybe something in HR and admin, something in finance, yes? And then obviously your business marketing or business development kind of structure. So a very lean business in terms of where you are for size. I'm going to now quickly share my screen. Which is here. Can you all see my screen now? Yes, okay. So Solo to CEO, workplace productivity, simple steps. Now, your people obviously make up your organization. So your recruitment is totally key in how you find the people that are going to help you to grow. This means that you are always investing in people where your organization is concerned. So investment doesn't always mean money, obviously. Investment means that your people are what are going to drive your business. I think this is definitely clear. So your recruitment is usually tied to what your values are, what your strategy is saying, and what it is that you want to achieve. Sorry, give me a second. I don't know why I don't want the talk to be showing. Give me 1 second. Okay, it won't. So your recruitment in terms of where your productivity is really key, because when you think about your social relationships, it's about happier people. Obviously, happy people are more popular. So when you're doing your recruitment, for me, from where I'm sitting, I'm also an advocate for happiness. So when I see people in front of me, I look at their vibe, I look at their presentation, and I look at what they are telling me without actually telling me what I want to hear. So where your productivity is concerned, you need positive people around you in terms of their self-esteem. What kind of work units are you trying to create? And what is really your value system in terms of how you build the people around you? So some of the descriptions that you might look at for benefits of the people that you're recruiting could be linked to some of these in terms of the outcomes that you're after. How happy are they when you talk to them at the interview? What kind of relationship do they have? The support that they might offer in terms of people teams, and then citizenship, because happy people are more likely to donate their time to your organization. So how do they operate in terms of how they offer their voluntary time, for example? If I'm going to quickly, please just put a question or a comment in the chat and I'll try and refer to it. Oops. So food for thought. I think it's important, especially in today's world, to think about what you're bringing into your organization. So by that, I mean that what are you thinking about the wellness aspect of your staff? So a lot of people now will tell you that I'm not willing. I had somebody in my office just yesterday for an interview, and she was saying about how she wants a remote job. So I was like, well, what if I can't get you a remote job? Does that mean that you will not be interested in any roles that we may be able to offer you? And she was like, no, I have to work from home because I live far away. There's too much traffic, which I think is really good for an organization to be able to be flexible in that sense. But are you strictly just looking for a remote worker, for example? What is your organization saying? What are the needs of your organization? And would you be willing to just look at a remote role, for example? So Lola mentioned something about the environment as well. I think that for any strategy, for any business strategy, there needs to be some kind of aspect in terms of what you're doing for your environment. And that means that then also translates to what investors will be looking out for. So all these kind of benefits are actually attached to how your business is structured and how you intend for that business to grow. So what is culture and why is culture so important? Can I have some responses within the chat? What does culture mean to you in your organization? Is anybody there? Can anybody hear me? Is anybody interested in what culture is, how you build a culture? So your culture is a set of your shared attitudes. So if you think about why you started this business, there was a set of values that you decided to use to guide your business. So these values are literally attached to your people. Your people are what are going to build your culture. But of course, you have to have a preconception of what that culture should be, so that when you're doing your recruitment, they actually tie into what it is that your values are, and they tie into what you want the character of your organization to be. That is why we pay so much attention to culture, because culture is about the people, and the people are what are going to drive your business. In a nutshell, that's what culture is. And usually when we have like culture audits, we try to look at what the people are saying about that organization. So if you have people who are toxic, for example, in your organization, then you obviously don't want them, because it means that they will start to now determine the kind of, they will now start to bring the toxicity into your organization, which really is what you don't want. So the attitudes of your people are what are going to drive that culture. And culture actually evolves. We like to let culture evolve, and as much as you want to mold it, it's better if you let it evolve, so that way your organization is organic in how it grows, and then you can build that culture from what it is that your value system is saying. If anybody has any questions, please just raise your hand virtually or unmute yourself and ask that question, so that I'm not talking to myself all the time. I'd like a situation where you're actually asking me questions. So in terms of what your culture is, I'll ask another question, which is getting you to think about the things that matter most to you in building your organization, and the things that matter the most to you personally. So I'd like you to share that if you can, because it looks like everybody's really quiet. So I've said already, why do we care about culture? I mean, your culture is to recruiting, just as product is to marketing. So when you think, sorry, Lola, are you saying something? Okay, when your culture is to recruiting, just as your product is to your marketing. So when you think about what your brand is saying about your organization, you're thinking about what your culture is. And of course, culture can actually take the place of people. So your people is to your recruitment, just as product is to your marketing. So what is it that you're putting out there? What is the message that people are saying about your business? So if, for example, now I'm selling accessories, I'm making jewelry, what are my products actually saying about the kind of organization that I am? And what are the people that I'm talking about my business? What message are they putting out there? And what are people seeing in terms of what my brand is saying? So culture, your recruitment, everything is tied to your business where people are concerned. So you really have to think about what your people are saying in terms of what your brand is putting out there. In terms of what your strategies are, I think that we probably need to talk about this just a little bit. What is your candidate sourcing strategy, for example? Do you have a talent pool? I feel that most organizations in this part of the world sort of react to what the market is saying. But if your strategy is tight, or at least if you have an overview of what your strategy is, where your people are concerned, you start to consciously build a talent pool versus a talent pipeline. So obviously a pool of people is probably just a database that you have where you say, okay, let me just make sure that I have CVs in the background for where I need to go to them. But having a talent pipeline is even more constructive in the sense that you now know that that pipeline of people are those that you've already looked at their CVs, you probably had a conversation with them, so that when you need that recruitment, there's a ready go-to contact that you already have. So having a talent pool is a start of that strategy. But having the pipeline is a better way of looking at what your people are doing in terms of how your recruitment needs actually evolve. So I'll just run through this quite quickly because it's really quite clear. And for anybody that needs to refer to it later, you can always send us an email, like Lola said. So you need to also have the situation where you diversify your candidate sourcing channel. And this is normally done maybe through a LinkedIn, for example. In our organization, we try to ensure that we also use offline methods, because I prefer situations where somebody would call me and say, oh, Adjo, I need this kind of person. And I can just go offline and say, okay, I have the exact person for you. Now, an offline recruitment method is usually also good in the sense that it can even be something that you're recruiting from in-house. So you may be able to have trustworthy staff that you can go to and say, do you know anybody that is good at this kind of role that you can recommend? And then start your interviewing process in that manner. And lastly, it's usually good to have a source of candidates for roles that you haven't actually identified as yet, or for roles that you, in your long-term recruitment, you have in your recruitment need, but you don't actually have that role open as yet. So it's always good to actually have some kind of a back end to fall on for your candidate needs. If you have any questions, anybody, just raise your hand again. I'm going.
There are a couple of questions in the chat.
Why can't I see them?
Okay, should I read it out?
Please, if you would.
Okay, so I think, so for example, Temitope says she sells fresh spices. Michelle Udini said that she thinks that culture is the general vibe that is present in an organization.
Okay.
Okay. Kevin Mayaki says she's in real estate. Temitope also said that the way your establishment runs, I think this was in relation to your question regarding what culture is, the way your establishment runs with the people as the frontliner. Are these correct responses?
Sorry, the way your people does what?
The way your establishment runs with the people as the frontliner.
Yes, they are totally, absolutely valid comments. I
Then
think,
there's a
sorry,
question
go on.
from Michelle, who is asking, if you're working in an organization whose culture isn't aligned or no longer aligned with their set vision, how can you help change it? Or do you just cut and run?
That's a really interesting one. Usually what happens is that you should have an HR manager. So that HR manager should be able to guide that process. And of course, in terms of any organization, there are usually monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, and all of that, where in the quarterly meetings, you're then looking at your strategy again in terms of what your people are saying about your organization. So that quite frequently you can then insert some kind of employee engagement tool within that organization, so that there's always synergy in terms of what you're doing, in terms of what your line managers are saying, and in terms of what they're putting down in terms of their leadership. So all of those things are what the HR person should be doing. And where you may have an HR administrator as compared with an HR manager, then it means that you as the CEO has to have more of an overview on what is happening in that sense. And I think every organization ought to have employee engagement. This might sound really funny, but in the sense that even if you are listening, as it were, in inverted commas, to what everybody's saying for what change management processes should be happening, you may not always implement those processes. But having a listening ear as a leader always makes for better engagement, because people like to feel that they are being listened to, even if those processes are not always implemented in that sense. Culture and it being a general vibe, definitely, because if you have, like I said, about having a toxic organization, then you don't actually want that. And I think in every case where you already have your JDs, obviously, for what that position is saying, you need to also be then referring to what that JD is and what the KPIs are. So I find that sometimes when organizations need staff, they don't actually know what they want. So it's always best to actually define that properly. And of course, we always hold your hand to help you write the JD, to help you determine what the KPIs are, so that you can make for better impact in terms of how you're managing your people. Company mission. There's this organization called BRAC, which is really, like, to me, is a social impact organization. And what their mission says is that a world free from all forms of exploitation, discrimination, where everyone has the opportunity to realize their potential. So like I said, if you feel that, if you have an organization that makes your staff feel like they can realize who they are, they can communicate, they can actually make changes to what the organization is doing, then you definitely have a better organization for that is productive. And I mean, the idea here is that we can then go into a case study that gets you to think about your company vision more so, and in terms of how you can actually tweak that company vision for better productivity. The case study that I'm going to share with you is about a company called Zappos, and what their mission is that they say that their number one focus is an organization. Their number one focus as an organization is the culture first. And the culture then is going to take care of the employees. The employees are going to take care of the customers' needs, which is going to take care of the business. So you can see that this mission statement is all about the people, it's all about their employees, because they feel that where the employees are taken care of, then it means that they will also take care of their customers. And in terms of what your visioning is doing, or in terms of what that mission statement is saying, it depends on what your focus is, obviously. So obviously this organization is talking about how looking after its employees will also make sure that their customers are taken care of. So obviously the benefits, the aspects about the benefits for the people, aspects about maybe working from home are definitely what they are focusing on. So what makes up the art organization company, or what makes up your spices, the spices company, which I don't know what the name is, but again, that mission is what is going to drive you. Some people actually come up with what their value system is about by using acronyms such as these. Obviously, these are things that I have made up. So you can also use this as a guide for what your value system is saying and how your value drives your people in your organization. I think that if you have words around enthusiastic, you're versatile, it means that you're an organic organization that is really flexible in terms of how it grows its value system and what its employees are doing within that organization. For me, these are the things that I value the most. They may not be what you value, but it's just a guide for how you create your value system and how you let it evolve. We're a hardworking organization. We are honest, because I find that in this environment, people tend not to use honesty as a working tool. Sometimes I have staff that may turn off their phones, they're not responding to messages. So I think honesty is really crucial. Even if you're going to be late to work, honesty needs to play a role in that organization. And we always value that. We always value honesty, risk-taking. The risk-taking angle may be obviously up for debate, because if you're taking risks in an organization, it means that you're looking at growth. Excuse me. But like Dola said earlier as well, if you're importing your raw materials, for example, that's a huge risk in today's market, because we all know what our exchange rate is doing. So if you're minimizing risk in that aspect, then it means that obviously your values are going to determine how you evolve in that sense and what your money is doing in your organization. Again, your policies, employee engagement, like I said earlier, what are you doing for what contributions you're listening to in terms of your employees? What solutions are they offering? Are you a fun environment, but you're also working hard? So there needs to be a balance in what your policies are saying and how that guides your organization and its people. What are your perks and your benefits as an organization for employee productivity? I think that now also in terms of what you're thinking about for investment in your organization, a lot of organizations are now looking at what their charity is saying and what their green footprints are saying, for example. International investors like to see that you're concerned about the environment and the perks that your strategy is implementing also has some kind of say in terms of how you build your community and what your people are saying. So these are the sort of watchwords that we like to look at for what our organization mission and values are. I came across this for what the company is doing actually in Nigeria, which I found really interesting, because obviously post-COVID, people are more concerned about cleanliness in their organizations. And it was interesting to see that they are actually offering all of this kind of strategy in their people, for their people productivity. The ones that actually stood out to me were full paternity leave. For us to be moving from maternity to paternity is quite interesting, because it means that you're a holistic organization and you're inclusive in terms of what your people engagement is also talking about. The work from home obviously is one that people are actually looking at a lot as well. And then 10% learning time. I feel that if you're investing in people and you're looking at learning for them, it's a huge growth process for you. And it also means that you're attracting the kind of people that you want to be working, who are actually adding to the value of the organization in terms of the knowledge system. So this really spoke to me in terms of what people are offering at the moment in all of these things, being hygienic, paternity leave, and the fully catered kitchen also was also quite interesting in what they're offering. So this is what you would actually be looking at for attracting the right people to your organization as well. Is there anything else in the chat I should be looking at?
No, nothing yet at the moment.
So this also relates to how, thank you. This also relates to how your employees develop their careers at your company. Let's not forget that in any organization, there's at least 30% of your staff that are looking at other job roles. So it may not mean that they want to move as such, but sometimes they just want to see where their value is at that time. And they may then say, okay, let me look at what people are offering, even if they don't want to be moving at that time. So you need to actually bear that in mind in terms of what you're doing for people development in your organization, and what conversations you're having around their growth within your organization. Even if it's not an immediate growth, people like to be good to be transparent, because staff might like to know that there's potential for them in terms of what their career is saying in your organization as well. So I talked a bit about knowledge and knowledge being power. So sharing knowledge is actually crucial in every step of what you're doing. Knowledge in terms of where your growth system is, knowledge in terms of what sort of trainings they could be doing that would add value to you, obviously. And I think as CEOs, we need to sort of stop thinking about, oh, if I train this person in this, what if they leave me? It's more important for you to be thinking about what knowledge you're actually adding to their value system that they're going to use within your organization, and not think so much about them moving. People are going to move all the time. Change always happens. So you need to be thinking more of, okay, what am I doing to actually empower this person for the time that I have them with me? And that would be a better way to think about adding value to what you are doing. So in terms of building that knowledge, it's you may be looking at having more one-on-one mentoring events or mentoring conversations with your staff. Personal mentoring also goes a long way. Even if you're just asking the odd question about, oh, how are you today? And taking 2 minutes or 3 minutes to talk to an individual that may be looking down on that day goes a long way for your workplace productivity. You may also have a system where you're paying for certain courses for them, but this may not actually be valid so much anymore because there's so many free courses out there, and that any staff can actually tap into. So just having these conversations around that adds the value, or the person then sees that they are valid or they have value within your organization. And then lastly, maybe having in-house seminars. You can actually have knowledge sharing processes where your staff are actually the ones that are sharing that knowledge. So for example, somebody who is in finance may be able to have some kind of a 30-minute workshop for how they can talk about maybe an Excel, for example. So it doesn't have to be anything big. You don't have to be spending huge amounts of money. And that can still be how you invest in your staff on a monthly or a bi-monthly kind of basis. Well, I'm almost at the last part of what we need to be talking about. For your brand and for your people, they need to be talking talking more so about why they love working within your organization. So as a CEO, I would like you to think about what happiness at work means to you, how you can start to implement that if you're not doing that already. And I think for a forward-thinking organization, all of this is again tied to your people. What are your recruitment needs? How do you actually go about recruiting? We can actually give you like a short template in terms of the steps that you may be looking at, and what are the things that will make people want to join your organization. what gets them to stay, and what are the things that may get them to want to leave. Obviously, your onboarding systems are what will determine all of these kind of processes. And what do you want people to carry on saying about your organization? Don't forget that any staff that you have are your brand ambassadors. So you want them to be saying positive things about you. You're a really nice boss. You're always there. You have a listening ear. You're worried about their welfare. You have all these fun programs that you run within your offices on a Friday, for example, and you spend time breaking bread or anything like that. So these are the things that simple happiness tools that you can actually implement to improve on your productivity. So I have a case study that I hope that we still have time for. Lola, how is time looking? It's, what do you think?
You still have half an hour.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to have a go at sharing this. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me just stop the share for a second. I'm just going to copy the link. I'm going to share a link on the chat at the moment. I'm hoping that you can all open up that link and then we can look at the case study. If we can't do that, then maybe what I will do is just get you to read the case study in your own time, and then we can share. I can spare like 30 minutes for us to then have that proper conversation. But I've shared the link now, so if you can just try and see if you can click on that link and read the case study quite quickly. It's
Do you want me to try and share it? I have it open.
Please, would you?
Okay, is that it? Is it this one?
Yeah, the Zappos one.
Zappos? Am I showing the right thing? Can you see my screen? Hold
on a second. Sorry, don't share that link. That's just a talent management tool. Sorry. sorry. It's a Word document which.
If you send it to me on WhatsApp, I can share it. Or you can, or is it on your screen? You can share it if you open it up.
Okay, just share it on my screen. Okay. Sorry. It's quite long actually. I'm not sure. Anyway, let me just go to the beginning of it. So this is this. Can you all see it?
Yes.
So is it big enough?
It could be bigger.
Okay, let me just make it bigger.
It's okay for me.
Is that better now?
Yes.
But then that means that I have to keep scrolling down so that you can keep seeing it. So I'm just. Am I going too quickly or should I? Or too slowly? So I'm just going to have you look at the organizational structure. If anybody wants to say something, if I'm going to quickly, just put up your hand. I won't take you all to the end. I just wanted to show you a few points and then we can just discuss them. So here it then talks about how it's developing its freelance culture and its core and the values that it concentrates on. So
useful for me, but is it possible to know what Zappos does?
okay, so at the beginning, they're actually a shoe organization, but their focus, their focus is really about customer service. But of course, all of this is created from their values. We talked initially about the values that you have within the organization and how that should drive your recruitment processes and how that also drives the culture that you're building. So here we're talking a lot about a fun environment and this wow factor through the service that they deliver on. And if you remember, we also talked about how your people are the ones that actually determine your brand. So that is what this organization is all about, achieving extreme customer service through the people that it obviously has within this organization. So the last thing we're going to touch on now is your human resources management and how that and your employee relations. And then we can have the discussion around it. So I'll stop before communication. So when you've all read before communication, then we can just talk about it quickly. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If that's okay. Okay, so any comments? I'd like us to just touch on a few things in terms of what we discussed before, especially where values are concerned. So can we start with, before we actually get to the values, do we remember who the key players were at the beginning of the case study in terms of the staffing that they were referring to in the organization? Anybody? So the two key players were initially the CEO and the finance officer. So when we're talking about lean organizations, you have to actually determine what?
Yeah, Michelle said that. In the chat room, Michelle said got the answer correctly. If you look at the, I don't know how it is on your computer, but there's a banner at the bottom of the screen where it says share screen, mute video, then there's chat there.
Yes. Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah, so it pops up. Anyway.
I don't know why it's not popping up on my screen.
So yeah, she
I don't know why it's not popping up on my screen for some reason. I have to keep going back to it to check the chats. Thanks, Michelle. Yes, thanks for that. And that's why, you know how we're referring to lean organizations. So in terms of what your organogram is, you can decide that you only have 2 or 3 people as your main, and then maybe one person underneath that as a sub in terms of line managers. Does anybody remember what their values, any of their values? It's some of the things that we actually referred to before when I had that thing that said values and what the acronym meant. I think there was something along the lines of respect. So it's an organization that is keen on having staff that respect each other, because obviously if that is existing, then it means that there's teamwork, people actually value each other, they are polite in how they coordinate their activities within the workplace. Anything else about the HR department that anybody remembers? No? Okay, I'm going to have to share that what's it called? That case study, obviously. But there's a lot of talk around how the HR department gives out lunches. Does anybody remember seeing that? Obviously, I read it before, so I sort of have an idea already. But it popped out at me when I was scrolling down the screen. Lola, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, for me, it was how they had a nap room.
Okay. So some organizations actually have that where you can just go and, sorry?
Kemi Mayaki saying, okay, yeah, they're chatting in the chat, but in the chat room. And because we're seeing your, what's it called? You're sharing your desktop though.
Oh my gosh. Can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, let me read the charts then. Okay, I know what's happened. My screen has gone somewhere else. Sorry, I can't even get back to it. Okay. So the whole purpose of that that case study. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, so Kemi Mayaki said driving.
Okay.
And Tomilayo says they determine the quality and quantity of employees. Then the nap room, see somebody else who likes napping. Then the nap room and the lunches and the vending machine. I think I'm going to like Tomilayo. She likes food and sleep like me.
So all of this is centered obviously around employee well-being.
Yeah.
This organization is really thinking hard about what its productivity levels should be. And we all know that, especially now, everything is so expensive. So anywhere that is talking about sharing food with its staff, obviously your mental health is at its peak in terms of your well-being. And that means that your productivity levels will obviously be higher. So these are all the reasons why you can see how culture is built by people and how that relates directly to what your brand is saying, your brand message is saying. And for any organization that obviously wants to be attracting talent and attracting investors, these sort of visions and value statements are key to your growth and attracting all the right people, the right investors. So the next thing I'd like to, there was also something about performance rewards, I think, and medical care. So I think those are really standard anyway in terms of all of that, in terms of all of those benefits within an organization. So I have a productivity calendar that is really very basic. So if you think about the fact that for anybody who is working in an organization, this is where your life, most of your life is spent. So you need to actually be productive in every sense. And productivity actually comes from being in a state of mindfulness where it's not just the organization in terms of the CEO thinking about the productivity of its people, it's also the people actually taking their own productivity into their own hands. So this is just a sort of blank calendar that I've shared. And we can send it to you by email for the little plugins that you can have and you can use on a daily basis for either you as an individual or as an organization. So little things about asking for help when you need it, because the burnout factors are so high these days. And I find that staff tend not to want to ask for help because if they feel that it's going to make them look inadequate or incompetent or whatever it might be. So asking for help is always a good thing, no matter what that help might be. It's fine to say that I don't know, please help me. And of course, things, little tools about changing your attitude, because again, being in that space of mindfulness, it's your brain is your driving factor in everything. So if your attitude is right in terms of how you relate to work, then it's the likelihood of you giving your all is higher. Going to sleep on time. A lot of us don't go to sleep on time, and this affects obviously our productivity levels as well. It's okay to let go of things that you haven't been able to change, because if you have in mind that every organization is a growing organization and things evolve on a daily basis, it's okay to actually tell yourself that, okay, I've tried that, now let me change to something else. And I need to let that go and just learn from whatever mistakes that I've made. Because obviously as an entrepreneur, you're going to be making a lot of mistakes. We all do that on a daily basis. So it's about growing and learning from those mistakes without actually beating yourself over it. And we're actually allowed to commend ourselves. We're allowed to actually have people around us who are going to build us up and give ourselves a pat on the back. So a productivity calendar is a really simple tool that you can use to just help you to assess where you are in terms of either your mental health or in terms of finding your work-life balance, like we all need. Okay, Lola, it looks like there are some more comments in the chat. Also, somebody actually said this in an organization. There's also this organization that is called A Good Place to Work, and they actually send out questionnaires and hold assessments on what the productivity and positive levels within organizations and what they are doing to make sure that their employees are looked after. So this came from one of those polls that says that I love working here because I'm appreciated for what I do. I also get to work with smart people and I challenge myself every single day. So everybody would want to work in this kind of organization that appreciates its staff, that actually commends them for a job well done. I feel that where our mental health is concerned, we tend to beat ourselves down a lot. But for anybody, I mean, it's a simple human factor. For anybody that does good work and is commended for it, you then find that, oh, they're encouraged and they're motivated and they want to do more for that organization. Let's not also forget that being a CEO is a huge role, and the burnout aspects are really huge. So for everybody needs a support system. So your people are what are going to actually help support you for everything that you're doing. So your recruitment processes are really, really going to keep playing a huge role in your organization. So for any tool that you need, you're welcome to approach us to ask us for anything that you might need. I'm coming to the end now of my presentation, but I'd like to know if there are any comments, any other questions that I may have left out for anybody that wants some clarification on anything. Any questions? Any questions or any comments, please? I know I've gone through it a bit quickly because of that presentation, but I'm going to share that case study with you again.
So what would you suggest for companies that probably just have one staff? So it's just them and one staff doing literally everything from marketing to finance how do you keep that staff motivated so they don't leave?
One staff doing marketing and finance, is that what you said?
Yes, because as small businesses, a lot of you've grown that you're not it's not you MD that is doing everything. You've been able to employ one staff, so you shared some of your roles with that staff. So maybe you're doing finance, or maybe the person is doing like two people's jobs, for example. How do you keep that person motivated enough to stay for the growth of the business to allow you to then now have enough income to hire another person? Because essentially that's how it works. You're going to have to grow organically if you cannot bring in money to hire and have, if you don't have 6 months salary to pay people in if you don't have something coming in, for example.
Well, I think that what would have happened in that situation is that the person would have joined you at the start of your business. So obviously you will share with them the vision for the organization, and what organizations are doing now, or what some CEOs are doing now, is offering some kind of a profit share, no matter how small that may be, to that company. So I think that the huge motivation might be that these are what our targets are in terms of the money that we're after. So if we know that this is the 6-month growth plan, and we've achieved the 20 million naira, whatever it is in that time, it would then mean that they also get part of that profit sharing. So that could be an easy way of motivating them and getting them to stay, because obviously it's hard for people to actually see the vision of what the CEO is trying to realize. So having them obviously join at the beginning and have the part of that organization is really a huge motivating factor, and is what will probably get them to stay, I think.
Thank you for that. I keep getting that question. That's because most of the people, a lot of our clients are solopreneurs with maybe like 1 or 2 staff, and they keep asking that question, very soon the salary is not going to be sufficient to keep the staff.
Yes. So if you're growing it with me, then you will get the salary. But obviously, like even when I first started doing what I'm doing, which is obviously HR, I found that I was doing everything. I was writing presentations, I was doing the marketing. I wasn't doing the finance because my money is really bad. I can't manage all this database Excels and things. So I had somebody running the finance, but it's really, really challenging. And also sometimes people don't want to let go of what is obviously their baby. So we need to learn how to delegate. But obviously in the startup stages, finding the right people is obviously key. And I think that we all need a support system at some point. But I think it's also about how we know, is the self-knowledge aspect. What do we know that our own strengths are, and what can we actually manage, but obviously for how long? Which is why even as a CEO, we also need mentors to help to grow us and to build us as well.
But Michelle,
yes, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I've just seen your comment now. Everybody wants to feel that they're valued. It's again, it's just a human factor. It's even like when you have a child and they've done one drawing in school and you're like, oh my God, this is fantastic, even if you're thinking it's rubbish, So I think that always goes a long way to motivate anybody. So encouragement, definitely. And really having those conversations about, oh, what are the issues that you are having? What do you think in terms of what we should be changing? What is the, obviously knowing about market knowledge as well. What are the things that we should actually be paying attention to in terms of what our competitors are doing and all of that. I also found that I wasn't paying much attention to what my competitors were doing. People will come up to me and say, oh, but Jobberman is doing this and all the rest. And I'm like, well, that's not what my business is. So in terms of focus, we need to be really strong in terms of what our strategy is saying and why we started that business. Why did we want to do that business? What are we changing in society? What is the added value for the organization that we are growing? And all of this obviously is built around our passion. Why are we doing this? Because if you've got no passion and the passion dies after like 6 months, then you're not going to have a business, because we're all sticking to it because of the passion that is driving us. So the things that matter to us as an individual, the things that our value system is actually determining for us is why we are doing this business. So we have to keep going back to that regardless. Any other questions or comments or worries that, or any 3 things that you may want to solve in your organization today where your people are concerned? Please go ahead and ask. Is this Tokes? Oh, wow. I didn't know you were there. Hi, it's been a while. Anybody, Temitope, anything to add? Aduke, did Aduke say anything, Lola? I don't know if she spoke.
No.
Aduke, yes, Guru, any comments to make? Kenneth, there's a guy here as well, Kenneth. So how are your people doing in terms of your recruitment and your virtual assistants, etc.? Yeah, that's good to know. Obviously, you haven't had